Okay, welcome everyone. We're underway and we are now recording this program or this session. My name is Javier Suarez. Welcome to Resolve It in 30. I am part of the GPHCC staff and thrilled that you guys could join us. I'm going to hand things over to your moderator for today, Kieran O'Connell. Kieran?
Hey, thank you, Javier. And hello, everybody. It's great to have a number of you who just hung up on a prior call, so to speak. Join us on this today, our second Resolve It in 30 forum. Resolve It in 30 came about as an idea that the GPHCC had relative to being able to help our members, and Resolve It in 30 is a members-only exclusive program that we do every Friday / every other Friday relative to the hot topics that are happening in the marketplace as a function of COVID-19 and also as a function of business, okay? So it's well attended, it's well, how can I say? Not only well attended, but we get a lot of follow-up on our topics. So today, okay, I am Kieran O'Connell, I'm your moderator. You saw a slide of Jael, who's also on the call with us, as well as Javier. Please remember, folks, it's really important, mute your mic, okay? And use the chat box for any questions that you have. And we'll also do sort of a live Q&A at the end because it looks like we have a number of people on that can hold that capacity. It's not too great. So with that, I want to let you know that Resolve It in 30 is all about 30 minutes. It's about lunchtime on Fridays. It's about just a quick agenda to be able to talk to our members about, like I said, the hot topics. What's the agenda? It's real simple. You just got my introduction. I'm going to turn it over to Brenda Soto, who is our expert in HR issues, all things HR, who will talk about some of the hot issues right now in reopening your business and bringing people back to work, okay? And at this point, let me turn it over to Brenda. Brenda, welcome. Brenda is a valued member of the Greater Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. She has been a panelist on a number of different things that we have done over the years. She is a resource that we fall back to when we utilize. And folks, please, if you have questions after this presentation, you would be well served to reach out to Brenda. Again, it's about businesses doing business with businesses within the chamber. So with that, Brenda, let me introduce you. Let me thank you for your time and consideration, and you take it from here.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And this is definitely an interesting topic because as you all know, we are, returning employees to the workplace during and after COVID-19, pandemic is not simple. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go high level overview to let you know how we should be getting ready. This is our first slide. So planning to start before you bring your people back on site, it's something that you need to start. You need to definitely, you need to plan before bringing the employees again, to their website, to your site, I'm sorry. So one of the main thing, and that is gonna be happening all the time, is ongoing and clear communication. That's key. That's why it's the first one. And the reason that I'm saying that is ongoing and clear communication, even when it sounds basic, is that all of this situation is about health. It's a physical health, definitely. There is an emotional and mental health that we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But if you as an employer, you're not ready and you don't know if that employee had COVID-19, that employee was in contact with someone with COVID-19, or even if just keeping a clear communication in terms of what is the situation in terms of your restaurant, your company, you want to engage in both communication because that's going to keep the employee engaged, knowing, if the future is going to come back. You will know, hopefully, that employee was taking unemployment benefits or was on leave of absence. So you want to keep that communication. Another part here, which is the most important one in that communication, is the authorities. In that case, it's a pandemic. We are dealing as an organization is about workplace safety. So CDC, you know, the control for disease, you want to be in their website, their communication, CDC, OSHA, Occupational Health and Safety. Those two organizations are going to be the drivers for you to go to the second bullet, which is identify a task force to help you implement the plan. It is required that you have a safety officer. You want to have all those key areas in place, managed by a safety officer. You want to have like a safety task. That is going to help you to go to the third bullet, revise and develop guidelines, policies, and procedures. Guidelines, remember, guidelines are those that are coming from, let's say, Occupational Health and Safety or CDC guidelines. Based on those guidelines, that is mandatory. For example, everybody needs to use masks in your workplace. So that is the guidelines. Now, how are you going to translate that to a policy? Putting that in writing to make sure that if someone shows up in your restaurant, in your office, and it doesn't have, is not wearing the mask, what is your policy? What is the actions that you get, disciplinary actions that you may take, because the driver is workplace safety and you want, is your obligation, it's mandatory that you provide a safe work environment. And the employee, he can refuse to work back. And it's okay if you don't provide and he or she believes and thinks that you're not providing a safe environment, he doesn't want to come back. And you have the responsibility. And you can be in problems with that. And then the procedures are, let's say the procedure, the difference in procedures is, what are those steps that they need to follow to be in compliance with the guidelines? For example, you have the procedures to, if it's the coffee machine and there's going to be more than an employee handling that, what is the procedures? They need to wash their hands. They need to wearing gloves every time that they're changing different shifts and handling that coffee machine, coffee maker, and or what is the guidelines to use the bathroom and all of that. So just to give you a high-level overview, you want to define guidelines, policies, and procedures that task force is going to help you. Conduct a risk assessment. Again, you may have occupational health and safety officers coming to your facility. Even if an employee says, I don't feel safe because I know that someone else have been in contact with COVID-19 and the organization doesn't have any practices in place. I don't feel safe. So you want to have a risk assessment in that. So let's move to the checklist. So in the next page, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of all the checklists that you want to, your team want to have in place. The first one, workplace safety. And this is pretty much what I have been saying, is the main driver of those pandemic situation. And let me give you a couple of examples. Workplace safety. You're going to check the airflow. Do you need to make arrangements in the temperature? You need to reaccommodate work space in terms of customers and employees. What are the arrangements that you're going to be doing in the office to make sure that the place is safety and is safe? Like I said before, the use of the bathroom. You want to have poster in place. You want to make sure that the screening, if the employee is coming back, what is the health screening? What is the process? Are you going to be doing a health screening, taking the temperature? Or are you going to be asking them to provide a certificate that, yeah, that they're fine, they're not being in contact with someone, they're not sick? That's going to be depending of your state policies as well. So I usually recommend that you check the state's regulation and guidelines as well. I know that Pennsylvania, the safety officer is mandatory, you know, because that's going to be the person that if they're coming to do an audit, they're going to be responding. And you want to have the team anyway and have the employees involved as well, part of the arrangements that you want to do. And employee recall procedure. Like I said before, employee recall procedure, it could be, okay, those employees were furloughed. They were part of my payroll, but I need to call them back. You should send a letter and say in advance that communication, in 2 weeks, we're gonna be starting operation. That's gonna be, and you can state your, you know, this job position and this is what you're gonna be doing. Just revisiting a simple letter is not mandatory, but you should. Why? Because you don't know if that person is willing to come back to work. You don't know if that person is sick. That's why the communication is important. For different reasons, or you don't know if that person can say that doesn't feel comfortable going back in your facility because it's not safe. That's why that letter, the main purpose is that you can also rephrase that you has made all the arrangements and accommodations, and that's gonna give them like the green light that feeling safe. So all those type of paperwork is very important as a part of the recall procedures.
So excuse me, Brenda, we have a question from Susan.
Yes.
And Susan runs a nonprofit called ARTS, which is more of a behavioral health type of organization. Susan's question is there a minimum number of employees as a threshold for the safety officer requirement? For instance, this is a tiny nonprofit. We're talking about Susan's organization, ARTS, A-R-T-Z. It's a tiny nonprofit with only two full-time staff and several contractors. Are we required to have a safety officer?
Well, I'm not sure, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if there's a threshold. However, in terms of Pennsylvania, right, it is my understanding that yes. However, it is about good practices. And when we say safety officer, I'm not talking about job title that now you are, you know, promoting a person. It's a designated, and it could be as simple like herself. You know, the person handling, she herself know that if you have an auditor coming from OSHA, or, you know, to make sure that you are provided a safety workplace, you will know that you are the designated person that knows that you know all the guidelines and actions and steps that have been made. So that is basically what they meant, that you have a designated, even if you have a media are coming, you know, so for any situation and claim. So it's pretty much that you know that this is the designated person.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think so, because each state is different, but I think that they still need someone designated, because even less than 500 employees, you know, they fall on the small businesses, and they pretty much need to follow all the rules and furlough, PPE protection. So I will say that go ahead and still do and make sure that you are designated, you are the person, or have someone designated that to check that all the workplace safety policies have been taken in place.
Brenda, just an FYI, with about the 13 minutes left that we have here, and there might be some questions at the end. Are there any, as a result of it, or as a function of the beautiful checklist that you have here, is there a sort of a summary that we can do of this checklist before we move to the next slide?
Sure. So new hires paperwork, like I said before, is pretty much about, you know, if that person is furloughed, and the main purpose is you want to have in writing, even if the person say that no, that I'm not willing to come, you need to report that for unemployment. That's in terms of new hires paperwork. And employee benefits, is that at any impact the employee benefits? Compensation, do you think that that was reduced? Did you make some changes in the payroll? So compensation, that information needs to be shared as well. Remote work, workplace safety. Do you think that that person should be still working remotely because it's sick or because it's taking care of kids? Is accommodation. You should be willing to do accommodation. Policy changes, again, if not is required to wear a mask, if not is required, what are all those policy changes to make sure that you are in compliance? Business continuity plan, summarizing, you need to keep that this is something that could happen eventually, that could be another phase. You need to have plans in place. And communication, training, that includes even training. Now this is gonna be different. That is the communication plan, even with external customer and even with employees, your management continues an ongoing training because there's mandatory training. So you should go and check your state and check all those mandatory trainings. That is kind of like summarizing. If someone has a question, I'm gonna have another slide, but if so far in that checklist, any additional question for me?
Not just yet. I think we'll have
Okay.
a couple at the end.
So the next slide is the next one. It's just to highlight that this is, yes, it's a physical situation, but it's a mental health. So there is I like to bring statistics. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago from this library, they say that 88% of the workers reported experience of, extreme stress. Even 91% of the employee working from home reporting moderate to extreme stress or feel, sick and ill. So if we as an organization take that in consideration, we want to make sure that we can accommodate, we respect, and always, note. Let's say, for instance, if they are not willing to return to work, that we can create that interactive communication and accommodation because it's a unique situation. And that's why coaching management, create that coaching for management, train the leaders to make sure that they're always listening and have that relationship with the employees. And like I said, that task force, is a combination of, yes, we need to be in compliance, but at the same time, make sure that they engage and they create a culture that it's going to be different. It's very safety driven, but a culture where we can have different communication and provide a safe and environment, mental and physical, for their employees. You can move to the next slide. And so what is the right move, summarizing for the organization? Ongoing communication, support, and coaching. Ongoing communication with even your attorney, even CDC guidelines. That's all driven based on CDC guidelines, occupational health and safety. And based on that, you're gonna teach and coach your management, support team, gather always feedback from employees, from customers, from clients, what we can improve, how can we, be more productive, look over our productivity, how is that impacting, and be open and prepared for change. All the time is going to be changing. We don't know. There's even things that the attorneys, there's still ongoing changes. This is a high level overview, and when you take basically what I'm saying, take that checklist, go over each of those checklists, this area, and make sure that you are in contact with your state, with your attorney, with CDC guidelines, and move from there. Now is open for a question because I know that this is very general.
I do have a couple of questions that are coming through, and I'll summarize them. And, one of the things that's interesting is that it certainly sounds, Brenda, as I'm looking down at my notes as well as the questions that are coming through, it certainly sounds like the best course of action for people to do is check the CDC guidelines, check the OSHA guidelines, and have a quote unquote a safety officer, okay? once you've got that, it's about communication, communication, communication. All right. Then, further to that, once you have guidelines, you need to develop your policies and your procedures that are in place, and you need to communicate them, whether you're posting them, whether you're sending them, whether you're posting them on your website, et cetera, whether you have a poster in the office, like you said, an example on the coffee machine kind of thing, that it's communication, 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 and it goes from a guideline to really a policy that you're inputting in place for the safety,
Correct.
not only of the business, but the safety of those who are, coming in and out and, availing themselves of the business no matter what.
Correct. Yes. It is important to have everything in writing as much as you can. That's what I was specifying. Revise. If you already have one, definitely need a change. If not, you need to have things in writing. That's what policy is about. The policy have changed. So what you want to have, let's say, what is the disciplinary action that you're going to take if someone is not following the procedure? What is even the actions that you're going to take if you have the customer coming to your place and the customer doesn't want to wear the mask? And the CDC is telling you that, yes, this needs to wear the mask, needs to be 6 feet apart. So you want to train them, even the employees or that safety officer or that designee, that they know how to handle that. Everybody, even the employees know how you're going to handle that. How are you going to handle that situation? You want to have a plan before you reopen and bring those employees back to work. You want to have that, okay, this is my guidelines. Now I'm going to train the employees and this is what I'm going to be following.
Okay.
So having everything in writing.
And consistently communicating.
That is correct, because
Right.
it's going to be constantly, that's going to be more likely a lot of changes. They're still changing. We're now moving to green phase. I think in Philly there is going to move. So there's different guidelines that as we move to different phases.
Brenda, we do have one more question from Scott Yeager. And Scott, actually, we have, let's see, about 4 minutes left. Why don't you just unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Brenda? So it's,
That'd be good.
So it's clear. Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Brenda. The segue of going green goes hand in hand with my question. On the list of recommendations, I know there are a lot of businesses right now, a lot of organizations actually, that are struggling with the question of, we are actually more productive now than we were when we were face to face. We are, safe now, as opposed to congregating back into, a work environment that may or may not be a risk to us. What advice do you have for businesses, or what do you sense in terms of businesses making that tough decision to remain working remotely as opposed to going back to a physical location?
That is very interesting, because that's what I have seen the most happening. Two things. Number one, even still, the organizations like CDC and even some attorneys and lawyers, they even encourage the organization, if you're not like sure, or if you want to go little by phase, keep remotely. That is even the safe way, the safe place for you. And that is okay. I mean, this is unpredictable. You can have people that have symptoms and other people that they don't have symptoms. And this is all about, stopping the spreading. That's one. So you can say, I'm still, as an organization, or even as an employee, you can still say, I'm fine that way. Number one, I feel more productive. So in terms of that, it hasn't had any impact. And number two, for, safety reason, I'd rather to still be, working apart. That's just one. And second one, you as an organization can design and do a job redesign, and that is okay. If you decided that your organization and job positions, that it's okay being that way, or moving forward, or giving the employees the flexibility to work from home, that is completely fine. That's a lot of organization are moving to that direction. It's just a changing on policy. It's just a changing on procedures and redesigning that several identify those job positions that could still work in telework. That's completely fine. Did I answer your question?
Most definitely. Thank you.
You're
You know,
welcome.
Brenda, it's really interesting. And, you know, in the last, you know, we've got about 2 minutes left here, but, you know, in the last couple of minutes, you know, one of the things that you know, you've said, and you've given us so much information, and again, in such a short period of time, and we really appreciate it. You are a wealth of knowledge, and, you know, from the perspective of, you know, everything changing, I understand that. And it's really, you know, one of those things relative to people being able to understand where to go, what advice, not just advice, but what direction, okay, and how to take that direction from a guideline perspective, like you said, and put that into policy and put that into procedure, okay? Should somebody want, who's on this call, or as you all know, this will be posted on our website. Brenda, how would somebody get in touch with you?
Yes, of course. Thank you. If you have an additional question, feel free to call me or send me an email. In my website, you can find my email, or contact me. But I can definitely, I just want to say before I move forward, I can then eventually break down and add additional brief webinar when I can talk specific one of those checklists, or if you have any specific topic that you think definitely is very critical, please let me know. But you can contact me at 302-348-8806, and I will definitely help you if you need additional help. Thank you so much.
For those of you on the call, again, Brenda is a valued member of the Chamber. She has been a resource to us for a good long period of time. She is frequently a panelist. She is an expert in her field, and we lean on her quite a bit. You know what, Jael, let's go to the very last slide. And as I want to thank you all for, again, you know, taking the time today to, you know, be in our Resolve It in 30. Just again, follow up on our website for all the different upcoming events. I want to point you to two of the most important events. Our next quote unquote scheduled Resolve It in 30 will be right after the 4th of July holiday. But I believe next Friday, we're going to be doing an interim one as well. And follow our website for that. And that's going to be all about the SBA. And that would be next Friday. And most importantly, mark your calendars, Closing the Gap, which is the forum that many of you who are new don't know about, but you will become experts in this very soon. We're doing a different format on this. It used to be a half a day to 3/4 of a day conference. This year, because of the pandemic, what we're going to do is run it out over an entire week. And it's going to be really cool because we're going to have really incredibly impactful topics on a daily basis with breakouts, workshops, and speakers. So mark your calendars for that. So with that, I will turn it back over to Javier, who will do any of the final goodbyes that we need to. Again, Brenda, thank you so much for your time.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
It was great. Thank you. And all participants, please let us know if there's anything else we can do. And if I need to sort of shuffle you over to Brenda, I'm happy to do so. I'm an email away from all of you, as you all know. Javier, take it away.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Brenda, and thank you to everyone that joined our session today. We know your time is valuable. So on behalf of the Chamber staff, enjoy the rest of the day and your weekend. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Be well. Take care, and thanks again.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.